Hi, everyone. Oh, looks like let me check that light there. All right. There we go. I want to have that shining in people's eyes there. Hello, I am Mark W., and I am in recovery, and I want to welcome you to my channel, Mark W.'s Journeys Through Recovery. This is my third presentation focusing on the 12 steps of recovery, and we've been covering the first step, which is we admitted we were powerless over our behaviors and our lives had become unmanageable. Before I continue, those of you who are watching, I thank you for watching. Any of you who would like to make any comments, you can either during this time or you can email me for a copy of this material for tonight's presentation at mwhitman185@gmail.com. And please subscribe and like the video if it's been helpful to you. So in this third presentation, I've entitled it Declaring War on Ourselves and on Others. War standing for worry, anxiety, and resentment. I think if we're all honest with ourselves, we experience these emotions. They're all emotions, they're feelings. They're also what motivates us and how it affects our behavior when we're caught up in those particular not so nice feelings. The first thing we want to do is maybe look more closely at each of those, the meanings of each of those words of worry, anxiety, and resentment. First of all, worry would be allowing one's mind to dwell on difficulty or trouble that is either actual or perceived or potential. So we find ourselves getting caught up in worrying about something, and we have a tendency that if we're worried about something, it's going to be almost the worst outcome or an outcome that is not going to benefit us at all. So we spend a lot of time not just being concerned, but worried about a negative outcome. And then we have more of a feeling that can really paralyze us, anxiety. It's that feeling an unease about something that seems imminently troublesome, but realistically has an uncertain outcome. It hasn't happened, but we have this obsessive feeling that it's going to turn out bad. Anxiety. And then there's resentment, which involves other people. It's the bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly that is real or perceived. So declaring war on ourselves basically is saying that we allow these three feelings to kind of overtake us. Now, none of us as human beings like to have bad feelings or negative feelings. We may feel caught up in them, but just from my own experience, when I have found myself feeling worried, anxious, or when I'm feeling resentment towards someone, it's usually because I want to have control over something or someone that I don't have any control over. Now, in our last presentation that we had a couple weeks ago about time, the past and the future, those are two elements of time that we have no control over, because the past has already happened and the future has yet to happen. The only time we can control is the present. So worry and anxiety, most especially, are wanting to have control over something or someone that we don't have any control over. And what we do is we put aside that which we do have control over. That's ourselves, our behavior, what we say, what we do. We actually have control and we have power there. And it's like we know that, but for whatever reason, it seems to be, at least for me, the first power that we just set aside. And we almost like say, I don't have any control. But what I want is I want to have control over certain people who have wronged me. I want to have control over a situation where I did some things and I'm afraid of the outcome of what may happen because of what I did. And I don't want people to get the wrong idea about me, or I don't want people to know the truth about me. That basically, oh, I'm a human being and I'm imperfect and I made some mistakes. Worry and anxiety also, we seem to get caught up in order to avoid being responsible for what we do. Now, I can only draw from my own experience, but when I have really been caught up in anxiety, especially, it has usually been because I am beating myself up over a mistake that I made or something that I did that someone or some people may have criticized. And I am waiting for the other shoe to fall. I am waiting for the negative outcome. I am waiting for a catastrophe to strike. That I'm suddenly going to be pointed out for who I really am, who I'm perceived to be, who I am. And I'm just waiting for the consequences to come. And when you really get caught up in that feeling of anxiety, it's basically saying that you don't even trust yourself. You trust no one else. You only are relying on the circumstances to take over and to fall down upon you. And that you're going to be caught in this terrible situation that you'll never be able to get out of. This is the kind of stuff that may go on in our heads, right? I'm sure that many of you have experienced feeling anxious or feeling worried. A lot of times it could be on a global aspect. We could be worried or anxious about, say, our country or the times that we live in. The whole pandemic, the coronavirus, probably really fueled a lot of that worry and anxiety about what was going to happen not only to us or to other people. What's going to happen if I may cause something that may cause someone else to get sick, or what if I get sick? It's just going to be a terrible thing. I don't know what's going to happen. And almost as if you're trying to seek control over it to try to avoid any bad outcome that may occur. When the real solution is that there are steps that we can take in order that we don't have to have those kind of negative outcomes. And if a negative outcome happens, we need to tell ourselves we can handle it. It's going to be okay. So, and insofar as resentment goes, I'm sure that if we were to take some time, we probably would come up with a list of certain individuals or situations that we hold resentment about. Someone who has wronged us, someone who misunderstood us, someone who judged us or who judged us as somebody that we're not, or discovering a truth about ourselves that we may be embarrassed about, and them kind of telling people, and then we're feeling anger towards them because they feel like they betrayed us. A betrayal or a breaking a trust. So these are all emotions that may be justified in our experiences with others, but there is a need to either control the outcome or give in to the perceived disaster that is, we're saying, is going to be looming over us. Whatever we may decide to do when we have these feelings of worry, anxiety, or resentment, there's a tendency to allow these feelings to possess and consume us. And boy, do they take up a lot of energy. I can recall times in which I was really caught up in my addiction, which is gambling. And I, God willing, I've been able to say that I have not gambled in a very long time, a number of years. But I know that whenever I was getting caught up in my addiction, I would be worried about who would find out. What would they think about me? And then I would get to be feeling anxious, the feeling of anxiousness, not being able to sleep. What is going to be the consequences of my addictive behavior and what I'm doing? And then maybe confiding in somebody and feeling that there's going to be some kind of resentment because they're going to tell somebody, or somebody who may have done something that has nothing to do with my addiction, but just in my relationship of not following through on a particular promise or something that they said they were going to do, or something that I'm expecting them to say to me and they're not doing it. And I build this whole resentment around it. And then I don't talk to them until they do these certain things. Then I'll talk to them again. So I'm getting all caught up in trying to take control of things and people that I don't have any control over. And then not even addressing that which I can control, myself, the decisions that I make. So, in a sense, we establish a battlefield that we perceive that we fight on, with the enemy being those people who have wronged us. Sometimes the enemy is ourselves, and we beat ourselves up for not being the person we feel we should be. Mistakes that we make are unacceptable. A lot of us who get caught up in worry and anxiety are people who feel that we got to hold up a particular image of ourselves, almost as if we need to be perfect. We put ourselves on a short leash, and we can't make any mistakes, because if we make any mistakes, then people will find out who we really are, that we're imperfect, and they're going to reject us once they find out who we really are. So by all means, we use a lot of energy on putting on a particular image of who we want people to see. Now, having an addictive behavior really doesn't help in that regard. So then we put up more energy to even hide that, because we get ourselves so worked up in these feelings that we got to have an outlet. And a lot of times the reason we turn to these addictive behaviors is almost to take a break from reality itself. So instead of moving on and learning from these mistakes that we make, we form a negative image of ourselves and others. We worry about what other people are thinking about us. We are anxious that we will be rejected. And we resent those who criticize or hurt us. You know, it seems to be perfectly okay for us to criticize ourselves and beat ourselves up, but God forbid if anyone else were to utter those same words at us. We become very defensive, and then we have one more thing that we can criticize ourselves about, because now we're being defensive about not letting people in on who we really are. And really the reality of that is, who we really are is good enough. It's just who we're made to be. And that's okay, because what we discover is that there's no one that's perfect. Everybody's got things they deal with. We all have our challenges. But still, before we come to that realization, we want to take a break from those negative feelings. So then, being that this is step one, realizing we have a problem over our addictive behavior and our lives become unmanageable. The unmanageability is caught up in the good feeling or the no feeling that we want to have. We want to feel different than the way we're feeling. So we'll do anything and inject anything and eat anything and do anything that's going to make us feel different than the way we're feeling right now. And that's lousy. And that's anxious. And that's worried and filled with anger and resentment. So turning to an addictive behavior, whatever that might be, whether it's drinking, gambling, maybe some people struggle with pornography, maybe it's eating, maybe it's watching too much TV, whatever it is, we all know if we get too caught up in a particular behavior that is overriding everything else, and we place importance and priority on that behavior over everything. Whenever we find ourselves doing that, that's a warning sign to us. There's something that we're not facing. There's something we're not wanting to take responsibility for. And it's as if we want to form our own illusion, as if we don't have to have the responsibility to accept something that we need to accept or do what we need to do. So the addiction itself serves us well for a while. You know, I remember feeling great relief and comfort and security when I would go to the casino, play my video poker or my blackjack games, you know, getting away from everybody, running away from responsibility, turning off the anger and the anxiety and the worry. And you know what? That addiction worked for me. I felt relieved. I could breathe. I had room. I could do what I want. And I didn't have to worry about what other people thought. I didn't have to worry about doing anything about the thing that I was dealing with. Just leave that alone. Maybe it would go away if I stay with this long enough. Of course, all of that not really being in a responsible reality. So These addictive behaviors give us a temporary relief from these emotions. They give us a false sense of control and entitlement. Like I would feel like I'm giving myself a reward for a hard day's work, or entitling myself to a few hours of fun for all the stuff I have to deal with in my life. I'm entitled to this. No one should criticize me for this. And if I happen to just not do what I need to be doing right now, instead doing this, that's okay. Who of us is perfect? We would look at the imperfection in the wrong way, like excusing and almost holding up imperfection in a way that it should not be held up as. That it's okay to be irresponsible. It's okay to be disrespectful. It's okay to not be good, but to just take care of me, not worry about anything else. That this is what is important. My fun and my outlet and what I want to do. And I don't have to answer to anybody. Now, that works for a while. But what never goes away and what we can never really turn off is the realization that when we stop our addictive behavior, because at some point there needs to be a break, reality will hit us. Nothing has changed. The things that we're dealing with remain. And as a matter of fact, they may have even grown a little bit more. Or because of what we've been doing in our addictive behavior, we've piled on even more stuff to worry about, to feel anxious about, and to want to blame somebody for it all. It's the way people treat me. It's because of the boss I work for. It's because of these people who are really weird or disagreed with me on something or be treating me with disrespect. So it's their fault that I'm doing what I'm doing. And of course, I need to do what I need to do to feel better or to not feel anything at all. So, our addiction fuels the fantasy. So what we believe, the illusion that we get, the justice that we deserve. So we began to start forming this other world that we live in, this fantasy world, this delusional world where everything is black and white. We're the center of it. We're important. And we can begin to fantasize about people getting what they deserve who've wronged us. And we trust no one except for the few people that we tell a limited truth about what we're doing so that they can feel sorry for us and say, man, I'm sorry you're going through that. Poor guy. Anything I could do for you? And if it's, something like gambling, if you're getting really desperate, yeah, can you loan me some money? I really need to go on the boat. People who enable us are not really helping us. They're just keeping us. We're using them to keep our irresponsible behavior going. And yet those are the only people we trust because they're not criticizing us or challenging us. The ones that we don't want to trust, who make us mad, are the people that love us, who are being honest with us, that want to challenge us. How many of us have been in denial when someone confronts us and says, there's something going on with you? And I don't think you're doing well here. What's going on? What? There's nothing wrong. Everything's fine. Why are you butting into this? Because by all means, we don't want anything to stop the comfortable, secure routine we've got ourselves into, even though it's not healthy, even though it's harming us, and it's definitely harming our relationships. We don't want that to come to an end. And then what we do to fuel it is to go right back to those negative feelings. The worry, the anxiety, the resentment, all those other emotions that are the fuel to keep us energized in our addictive behavior. And as long as we can ride that, then we're fine. Then we tell ourselves, I don't ever have to face that stuff. It'll come and go. The worst that anybody's going to do is say, we can't have you do these things anymore. And I'd say, fine, Gives me more time to do the other things I want to do. Taking a break. Doing things that I know aren't healthy but make me feel good. So are there any things that you may find in your life that worry and anxiety and resentment fuel you to do? Do you ever find yourself just wanting to check out? Just checking out from life, checking out from reality. What kind of war are you fighting? War meaning worry, anxiety, and resentment. Now, here's the thing. Worry, anxiety, and resentment in and of themselves are normal human emotions, okay? We can be a very healthy person and have those feelings. It's when those feelings become unbalanced, become something that we become obsessed with, become something that's running our life, that fuels us to do behavior that's not healthy for us. That's when those feelings give us a problem. Because this presentation is not about how we totally get rid of worry, anxiety, and resentment. Boy, if that were true, I'd be a rich man. But being that we're human, we're always going to have those. We're going to have those feelings from time to time. Because, well, none of us are perfect. And since none of us are perfect, our imperfections are sometimes going to affect other people, and not always in a positive way. Now, the key to that, though, is we discover it, we admit it, and we work to resolve it. We either seek or give forgiveness. We get an insight from the mistakes that we make. We forgive and become understanding of others who may have wronged us, and we move forward. So there may be benefits to the worry, anxiety, and resentments if they lead us to a healthier way of life. But for many of us, we get stuck in them. And so that acronym of war, declaring war on ourselves and on others, is allowing those feelings to just overtake us. And we can't feel them for very long. And so then we need a release. And so we go the other way to where we want to get rid of the feelings completely. And that's where addictive or compulsive behavior takes the place of altering our mood. Taking drugs or drinking or gambling or whatever it is that we use as what we call self-medicating us so that we can feel in an altered state that we prefer. Now, a way in which we can combat and put these feelings on a balanced level of life is that when we are at war, we need to ask for help. So ASK is an acronym that is the solution to putting these feelings in check. And the acronym ASK stands for accept, surrender, and know. So when we are at war, we need to ask for help. Now, accept. Accept that you are powerless in your present way, dealing with issues that fuel your addiction. Acceptance is basically what you can call the first step of recovery. Accept. Accept the fact that we're powerless. Accept the reality of where you are. Because putting yourself in reality helps then raise the awareness that you now have some control over the situation, of how you can remedy it in seeking the help that you need. Then there's the surrender. So we accept and then we surrender. Taking responsibility for our own actions and allowing others to be themselves. We must allow others to be themselves. We may not like their behavior. It may be wrong. But in order for us to get healthy, We must allow other people to be themselves. We can't change people. Only they can change themselves. We can respectfully go to them and raise some things to them and say to them, I see these things happening. This is how they've affected me. I'm letting you know that some changes need to take place in you. They're going to be your decision. I can't make you, but I'm bringing them up as a suggestion to you to help you. They can either accept it and say thank you, or they can get defensive and say, leave me alone, butt out of my life. Well, it depends on how you also communicate that, right? Because you can think of the times people confronted you when they found you involved in stuff you shouldn't have been involved in, that raised their concern about you. And here's the thing. Our higher power, which I like to claim is God, even God can't make us change. And if God can't make us do anything, why would we convince ourselves that we're going to make other people do it? Like, I'm better than God? We may have, in the depths of our addiction or behavior or our delusional world, may have even thought we were. I don't know. Being that we place ourselves in the center of our own universe that we want to work out of and keep everything nice and comfy and feeling good and not having to take any responsibility for the disaster all falling all around us. So we got to surrender, which means taking responsibility only for our own actions, not others. In fact, it was taking the responsibility for others' actions that got us into trouble in the first place. That's what fuels worry and anxiety and resentment. Wanting to control others or situations that we cannot control, and not controlling that which we can. So to ask is to begin to take control and power of ourselves and what we do and how we act and how we speak and how we see things. So to accept, to surrender, and thirdly, to know. To know is to be aware that a higher power is there to help us see the reality of things as they are and embrace the abilities that have been given to us to resolve the situation and begin to recover. And when recovery can begin in us, living a healthier life, and whatever that higher power may be, whether it's God, whether it's a program that you're involved in to help you in your addiction, whether it's a group of friends or a family, something, as I've mentioned in the first presentation about power, that has more power than you. It has to be someone that has more power than you in order for you to come to know the reality in which you're living in and to help you discover the abilities that you have, the tools that have been given to you by your own creation to be able to handle any situation that may come your way, and how to ask for help, to find people you trust, to find people who are in the maybe similar situations you've been in, or someone who's had the experience of going through something and how they found a way to get through it and come out in a healthier way. So when we're at war, we ask for help. Here's a reflection that I wrote called Conditional Surrender. We face life's challenges, expecting that we are to gain victory over them. We worry about our challenges and are filled with anxiety that people will discover who we really are, not the person we want them to see. Resentment builds when people do not act according to our expectations. And when they disappoint us, we want them to face the consequences of their actions. Our coping mechanism is our involvement in our addictive behavior so that we do not have to feel worried or anxious, just good or numb, so that we can put off doing anything about it. The problem is, nothing changes. And when we sober up, reality hits us in the face with the same worries, anxieties, and resentments. The only way things are going to change is when we make the decision to stop fighting the war and ask for help. We need to accept that we are powerless over others, as well as our addictive behavior. We surrender our need to control others and let go, allowing people to be themselves. We are to be honest with ourselves and know that our higher power can guide us to the truth of who we really are. When we work on improving ourselves, we no longer want to improve and change other people. We simply want to be a positive influence and support others who are fighting on the battlefield of life's challenges with us. The goal is not winning the war, but surviving each battle, gaining insight and wisdom, joining the army of people in recovery. There is strength not only in numbers, but in the quality of our desire to embrace and understand the challenges we all face. In our powerlessness, together we gain strength, allowing our higher power to lift us up to the level of serenity and peace. By accepting the war within ourselves, we have the courage to ask for help. The goal is not to win the war of our addiction, but to declare a conditional surrender, to not allow worry, anxiety, and resentment to win over us, but surrender to the reality that we have them. So, guys, when we have an addictive behavior, we're always going to have that addictive behavior. But here's the choice we can make. When we admit we're powerless over that addictive behavior, we can begin to manage it. Now, we can't make it go away. So, for example, any of you who may have gone to any 12-step meetings, you know how people introduce themselves. So if it's an AA meeting, a person will say, "Hi, my name is Mark W. and I'm an alcoholic." Or, "Hi, my name is Mark and I am a compulsive gambler." Or, "Hi, I'm Mark and I'm an addict." We identify ourselves with our addiction. Now, that's not putting us down. When we identify ourselves with our addiction, what we're doing is keeping ourselves open to accepting that we are powerless over it. But not powerless in the sense that we are weak, or powerless in the sense that we can't live a good life, but powerless in the sense that we hand it over to our higher power. By giving it to Him, He gives us in return the ability to handle and manage that addiction to the point that it becomes dormant in us. The addict is still in us, but we can choose through help and recovery and knowledge and the tools that we need to not engage in that behavior. Because we believe in 12-step programs that you are never cured of your addiction. Like, it doesn't just go away. In fact, if you want it to come back, begin denying that you're ever a gambler or an alcoholic or an addict anymore. Say, "No, I'm not that anymore. Even though I have not gambled for the past 8 years and I've been in the program for 20 years, I can never say to my dying day that, yeah, I'm cured of my addiction. I'm not a compulsive gambler anymore." No, I still am. It's just that I choose not to engage in that behavior anymore. Because there's a humbling, unifying connection by identifying ourselves with our addiction with others who are in that same addictive behavior. Because there's strength in that humility. There's strength in that need to support each other. And the war that we're fighting, we don't have to win. because it's not about winning. Winning means there's a conclusion and there's an ending to something. The only ending that we're looking for is being caught up in a bad behavior. But the possibility is always going to be there. That's why I say conditional surrender. It's not about winning the war. It's about surviving the battles within the war of the challenges of life. Conditional surrender means to accept, surrender, and know. To ask for help in our addiction and to help each other in our recovery. And there's something that becomes almost grateful about that. To be with other people who are sharing their imperfections with one another. There's a strength that takes place, and it's the strength of the higher power that we ourselves cannot offer one another, except in allowing the higher power to work through us and through our humility to say that we need each other. So yeah, we can think of life's challenges as a war, an ongoing war. But then there are truces that take place. There is still peace and serenity that's possible. And until the day that the higher power comes to bring completion and perfection to all of this, which is what I believe, will there be no more war? We can still be happy and have serenity living through the battles. And there won't be so many of them because we now have the tools to deal with the stuff we're dealing with. So just to sum up, we get caught up in a war of worry, anxiety, and resentment. Emotions that want to seek control over stuff we don't have any control over. When we get caught up in it and recognize we have a problem with it, we ask for help. We accept, surrender, and know. Embracing what we do have control over, and that's our behavior and our need to seek help and find the tools and gain the wisdom of what we gained from recognizing our addictive behavior. Here's a quote from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 11, verses 9 to 10. So I say to you, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. He who seeks finds. And to him who knocks, the door will be opened. This is what we gain from our higher power. This is our higher power talking to us. If you need something, if you're seeking something, you're going to find it. If you ask for something that you need, you'll get it. If you seek for something you need, you'll find it. And if there's an opportunity for you to knock on the door will be opened. The door opening, receiving others who are in need of recovery as well, and you being there as a help to them as they are to you. There's something that is wonderful about accepting the fact that we are imperfect and that sometimes we don't find healthy ways in dealing with life itself. Sometimes compulsive addictive behavior, and then being able to discover that we're unmanageable in our behavior with it. Finding others who understand that goes a long way. If we can only get to the point of just accepting that, the rest is just going to be wonderful for us because we're going to be able to know that there are possibilities of living a new and better life, not being enslaved to stuff that gives us heartache, that can shorten our lifespan if we keep staying in it. So a weekly goal, something for you to consider to do this week. I'd like you to discover the truth about one of your worries. What I mean by that is something that you find yourself worrying about, but getting to the point of looking at that worry in a realistic way and knowing the truth about it. And I bet you're going to discover it doesn't need to be something you need to be so worried about. But then you find what you can control to remedy that situation. Just find one thing. I'm going to conclude tonight with a familiar serenity prayer. It really seems to fit the talk tonight. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I want to thank you for watching this presentation tonight. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please comment on the channel itself or email me at mwhitman185@gmail.com. Also, if you'd like a copy of the material that I'm using tonight, I'll be happy to send it to you. I should be here next week at 9 o'clock Central for another presentation. Everybody live well. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Now I'm going to end it. I was looking for the button. Like I say, I'm still learning this stuff. So everybody take care.